So she sent out the invitation to all of you. Thank you so much for your support, Clarissa, and all at HR who are supporting us here. Or we are supporting everyone. We're trying to support everyone in the diocese with their volunteer recruitment. Yes, everyone else can introduce themselves. I just give a shout out to my lovely colleague Juliet and Mariel Woodward, who's the Assistant Director from Caritas, and of course Father Chris, who has kindly agreed to do an opening prayer for us in a moment. Both Clarissa and Juliet will keep an eye on the chat and pick up on any questions, especially if there seems to be any urgent question. But apart from that, without further ado, I think let's start at the beginning with the most important thing. And I'd like to invite Father Chris to start us off now with a prayer, please.
Well, thank you.
And also, if everyone, if everyone could keep themselves on mute unless they're speaking, that would really help, because we have a lot of people on the call, which is great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Elke. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see you all this morning. Everyone's looking really bright and shiny this morning. I'm particularly shiny because I'm just by a window. That's why it's not a halo around Marielle or me. But yeah, let's begin with some prayer. Today is the feast day in the Church of St. Timothy and St. Titus. They were companions of St. Paul on his missionary journeys, and with Paul they helped to build up the church, to plant the church, and then to help it grow. And I think there's a real link between what we try and do, volunteering in the church to help plant and to help something grow, to be partners together in mission, in planting and in tending. And that can take so many different shapes, you know, and has so many different faces, and I'm looking at some of them now. But I thought a lovely prayer maybe for us to begin would be a prayer of St. Ignatius of Loyola. It's a prayer that I learned when I was very, very young at Sunday school, and that was a long time ago when I was very young, but I pray it still. So let's pray in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, teach me to be generous, to give and not to count the cost, to fight and not to heed the wounds, to toil and not to seek for rest, to labour and not to ask for any reward, save that of knowing that we do thy blessed will. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Have a lovely session and a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you, Oka.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I love the prayer.
Really appropriate. Thank you very much. I know Father Chris has to leave us at this stage, unfortunately, but very grateful that he's been here for a little bit. Right, Clarissa, would you mind starting with the slides, please? I will try very hard not to make this death by PowerPoint. I'm really hoping that we will have a good discussion here today. The slides are really a backup in a way, just to make sure that I don't forget anything that's important that I wanted to cover. You will also all receive the slides afterwards. This session is also being recorded, and I want to say that if in a discussion anything is that's maybe you wouldn't like to have shared everywhere, then that can be edited out afterwards. Just let us know, please. Right. So we're here together to discuss about recruiting parish volunteers. And first and foremost, I'd like to say that the word volunteers, and I will keep using the word volunteers, that we don't forget that what we're really talking about is parishioners, each and every one an individual, each and every one with their own very unique gifts and skills and reasons why they want to get involved, or also maybe reasons why that's just not the right time for them, or why they don't feel they can. Please, in your mind, replace it with fellow parishioners who we'd like to have engaged in active parish life. It's just a bit more of a mouthful, so I'll continue to talk about volunteers, and I hope that you're okay with that. Next slide, please, Clarissa. So we've done the welcome and introduction. Anyone who's just joined, please do pop into the chat who you are, where you come from, and maybe your most pressing question today. And there will be times where we pick up on the questions, and any we don't cover or don't have time to go into more deeply, we will follow up. So please put them in the chat so that we know how we can help afterwards as well, point in the right direction, help with technical questions, that kind of thing. Then the main part will be going through a sort of a step-by-step plan, timeline on what a parish appeal or a volunteer recruitment drive, whatever you wish to call it, could look like during Lent this year. Where do you start? What are the important steps? In which sequence do they make sense? And at what time might you want to look at them? So again, of course, this is just an example. We're using Lent because it's a time that particularly lends itself to talking about service, about considering giving time, especially with the cost of living crisis. People might be a bit limited in the kind of alms giving they might be able to give, but would be very happy to give of their time. But it can be done any time of the year. So the basic principle, the basic sequence will be the same. And on the last slide, I will also have a few links to some of the resources I referenced. And if I've forgotten any or you need something else, let me know and I'll do my best to help. Right, so let's get started with the next one, please, Clarissa. Right, so these are the latest available figures for parish volunteering in our diocese. They're from 2019, and shout out and great thanks to Nicholas Seed, who just a minute ago sent me one update. Because during 2020, no statistics were gathered because of the lockdown, and the picture was so different from any usual year. So this table here is pre-COVID. And it just shows the sheer amount of volunteering that is already being done in the diocese. So nearly 40,000 volunteering roles and over 100,000 hours were given for volunteering in our parishes just before COVID. And the update that I received is that in 2021, there were 29,000 roles carried out by 18,000 roughly individuals, which is a number we didn't have before, and that's really useful to have. So you can see the number of roles has dropped quite considerably, and you might want to think about the reasons for that. Could discuss a lot here, but let's move on. Maybe just one thought. If I calculated that the 100,000 hours roughly would translate into 13 full-time employees in each parish on average. So that just shows the sheer support, the huge contribution that volunteers give to parishes by offering their time. Next slide, please. So Pope Francis recognized that recently on International Volunteers Day in December, when he said volunteers are the strength of the Church. They are a grace of God. They are a dimension of the Church's mission and maintain so many actions of the Church. We'll have some more sort of theological background in quotes later on. But for now, next slide, please. So I don't have to tell any of you here that the synodal process is going on and well underway. And the link to volunteering here and what we're trying to do is that we are journeying towards a synodal church. And one quote I picked out here is that, what could that look like in terms of volunteering? walking together, pray together, work together, so that all are included in the mission of the church. What does it look like with regard to volunteering? And what's the picture in your parish in that respect? And maybe you can reflect also on what could be the next steps in your parish on that journey, or maybe you've already taken the next step. We also heard in the synodal listening that rather than all being included in the mission of the church here, there is a recognition that so much is undertaken by so few. There's usually a small group of people doing most things in our communities. There's a deep recognition that priests and deacons are burdened so much. And the themes of communion, participation, and mission are really very important elements in the synodal process. So I wonder which one of these rings more true in your ears. How much walking together and praying together and working, serving together is happening in your parishes, or is it the situation that you have a handful of people who seem to do the lion's share of all the volunteering? So if you could just go to the next slide, please. Right. So we'll spend the next 10 minutes or so to actually have a discussion in smaller groups, rather than you listening to my voice this whole time. I'd like to give you an opportunity to have a bit of an exchange right here, right now, with a handful of others to look at volunteering in your parish. What is the situation at the moment? Also share what's going well. What have you achieved in your parish? What is going well? What kind of tips and success stories can you maybe share? And what is your biggest challenge? And also, have you thought about what the next step could be, or how you might overcome the challenge? And when we come back, we won't have very much time to do that, but maybe just feedback a couple of main points that have come up in your group. So we can't have lots of feedback from everyone. So put the nuggets and maybe the biggest challenges into the chat, so nobody's put on the spot here in the bigger group, but we're getting a bit of a sense of what's going on. Is that all right with everybody? Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Then Clarissa, if you would send us into our breakout rooms, and then we sort of come together again in 10 minutes. Try to be specific. I should say that, just try to be specific. So don't just say the biggest challenge is we just don't have enough volunteers. That's what we're talking here about in the whole hour. What's your specific challenge?
That takes time. It takes quite a few people.
I did like to hug it by saying where you from.
Lovely. Well, that's wonderful. Was that useful? Can I just have a quick thumbs up or not? I mean, lots of people don't have their camera on. So, yes, was it useful? Good. So if nothing else happens, then you already go away with something useful, some good ideas, or some good sharing. So maybe you've made connections and you can continue to talk with each other and share outside this meeting. That's brilliant. Right.
Actually,
so
could I
yes?
just chip in and say that we talked about the issues more than we talked about ideas. So personally, I'm very interested in ideas for ways forward, rather than us simply sharing the problem that we've all got.
Okay, so let's crack on with that then. Clarissa, would you please share the screen again, and let's go through the slides. Someone is not on mute and has a drill going in the background. It would be helpful if thank you. Fantastic. Okay. Right, so let's crack on, and it will be a little bit of a race through the slides, but you will get them, and you're very welcome to come back to me afterwards as well to follow up on any points in more detail. So let's have a little look at how volunteer recruitment drive overland could happen this year. So the first thing to do is to assess the current situation in your parish. Like, is there even a need for more volunteers? Because if there isn't, then obviously you don't need to take action, but I assume very much that there is, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So now that you know that you need more volunteers, more people to get involved, and maybe there isn't even necessarily a practical reason, but you would just like to bring the community together more, all sorts of reasons for identifying that need. So the next step would be that you don't work alone. You know, whether you're the parish priest or you're the person in the parish who deals with volunteers, who looks after them, who tries to find them, don't go it alone. Gather together a group of people, like a planning group. I called it a planning group here, but whatever you call them, but involve others from the very start. And good people to include could be existing volunteer representatives. So if you have parish groups going, whether it's catechesis, whether you've got a choir, whether you've got an SVP, whether you've got, you know, all kinds of different groups going on, a coffee morning, a food bank, whatever's going on, get those who are sort of leaders who look after these groups together. And if there isn't a specific person who's responsible for each group, just try and involve someone who's quite active there and who can tell you what's going on, you know, so you can listen. It's a bit of a listening exercise as well. The safeguarding rep. Every parish should have one. Maybe it's the parish administrator or parish secretary. Good to involve them. Anyone who will further down the line have to deal with the paperwork, with the processes, get them involved. If you have a Caritas rep, brilliant. Or a pastoral assistant, have a little think of who would be good people to support that general undertaking. Who might help to coordinate the volunteers down the line? Maybe if you're looking for volunteers to start a new group to enrich parish life, who might be interested in that and who could take on some of that responsibility? And the time to do that is now. Then next, within that group, consider the needs of the parish. So have a look at what's going well, celebrate the successes to date, and discuss opportunities. Where could things be improved? Where are opportunities for enrichment of any sort of ministries that are going on already? What do you see what's lacking? What's not happening in the parish because you don't have the volunteers, because you just don't have the people power or the people with the right skills to do it? And then agree, you know, which roles are you recruiting for? Maybe the ideal is to have, you know, 100 more volunteers to do all sorts of things, and you might have to agree on the priorities and who to reach out to now and what might be for later. And start with the bigger why. You know, why do you want to run a particular group? Why do you need more volunteers? What's the purpose and the scope of each role? And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Also, how many volunteers for each role? Do you need one extra catechist? Do you need lots of more people to sing in the choir, to enrich the music part of the liturgy? Do you need altar service? You will know, but discuss it together and get as much clarity as possible on what it is you want. You know, like the song, do you know what you want, what you really, really want? Because the clearer you are on the needs and the specifics of those needs, the better you're placed to come up with a plan and a bit of strategy on how to get there. Have a look at how to reach groups that are not normally reached. So, for example, if you try to get more people on board by asking existing volunteers to bring along a friend, great idea. Can be really successful and effective, but it could also lead to quite a you know, like attracting like kind of situation. So suddenly all the volunteers look a bit the same. How can you how can you reach out to those who might feel excluded at the moment? I've heard someone say just the other day, who's really struggling to find a volunteering role in her or any sort of parish or anywhere, says, well, I feel completely wasted. I have so much to give. I have skills. I'm not stupid. I really, really want to help. And yeah, there doesn't seem to be anything for me. So who might feel excluded in your parish and the sort of the wider parish community? In the synod, the theme is enlarge the space of your tent. So who's not in your tent, and how could you reach them? And try to be creative. Talk to others. Who could you ask? Who's tried something else, something that you haven't tried in your parish before? Have a look at barriers. What are the barriers? Do you know what's stopping people from getting involved? Have you made a general call saying we really need more people, and no one's responded, or the response has been really weak? What's stopping people? There's a wealth of skills and talents and generosity of heart and faith in the pews in every Sunday and also outside Mass. Those who maybe don't attend Mass regularly, how could they be brought in? Can you think of anything? What are the barriers? Is it possible that people hear the call but think, well, that's not for me, or they don't want me anyway? Sometimes there can be a bit of a situation where volunteering feels a bit like a closed shop. If you have that pillar of the community, there's just a handful of people who seem to do everything. How welcoming are they to new volunteers? Do they just say, oh, we're so overloaded, we're overworked, but do they actually welcome new people who maybe don't look like them, who maybe are younger or older or just new to the parish? What are the barriers? It's really worth spending some time on that and thinking of ways where you might, how these barriers might be removed or at least lessened. Yeah, so can talk about every single one of these points for an hour. Whole books have been written, so I can't promise that I can give you all the answers here and cover every detail. It's just food for thought and some ideas. And if you have absolutely no idea what's stopping people, is there someone who could ask? How could you find out? And this is also a good reason why you're involving people from the beginning. So it's not one person who has to do it all. It also gives people a sense of ownership. So if a whole group of people come together and work out a strategy and a plan, and who does what and who takes responsibility for what, you also get more of a commitment, and you're more likely to keep that recruitment drive going well beyond Lent, and have that kind of support. Build a bit of a culture of volunteering in your parish where that's just the thing you do rather than the exception. Easier said than done, I know. So then plan the next steps, agree who will take responsibility for what. In the end, is it the responsibility of the parish priest to make sure there are enough people? Will one person take responsibility for the promotion side of it? One person taking responsibility for setting up the processes, making sure you've got all the forms in place. Delegate tasks, allocate responsibilities. That can be an interesting discussion sometimes, of course, but spreading the load here will be useful. Any helpful tips and hints? Pop them in the chat. I'll keep repeating that. So any questions that come up that you'd like to share, pop them in the chat. Anything where you think, oh yeah, well, we had that problem and that's what we've done, type it in the chat. So let's benefit as much as possible from the pool of wisdom and experience that is in the room. And for those who are completely new to all of that, help them get a bit of a head start. Yeah, okay, the next slide, please. So something that should run alongside all of this, you know, something that should be happening already, and but could take particular prominence during Lent, is the element of formation. You know, do people in the parish really link the readings, the faith, the practice of the faith with the element of service? Is volunteering seen as service? You don't have to even use the word volunteer. You know, you don't have to shout out saying, we need more volunteers. Say, oh, we need people to help with this. We need some people to help with that. Could you help with this? Do you know someone who might be, you know, who might have the skills to do that and would be willing to help us out? But yeah, so this general wider picture, the why, the background. So I put one quote here from the First Peter: as each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace. Now, everyone has gifts, everyone has talent. Not everyone can do great things, not everyone can do all things, but everyone, you know, someone might just have a lovely smile and be really welcoming and could welcome people as they come to Mass. Someone might be a really good listener. So there are all kinds of gifts, and there don't need to be any kind of formal qualifications. And then there are these roles where you need someone with a really specific skill set. The committee members, the parish council, the finance person, the volunteer bookkeeper possibly. But anyway, I stray. So I'm talking about formation. So this goes to the deeper why of why we engage people in active parish life. And some suggestions on where that could happen is during homilies, especially when the readings at Mass, the Gospel, lend themselves to speaking of the active Christian life, the apostolic life, the service, the washing of feet. You know, there's so many scripture quotes that I could have used here. Help people to see volunteering as a way to live out the universal call to service. You know, love thy neighbor could almost be replaced with volunteer, but obviously it's bigger than that. And you might even want to go through the Love in Action program. This is a parish resource. It's freely available from Caritas. I put the link to the website, even though a rogue extra W has found its way there, but the link still works. Or any sort of other resources. So the Love in Action helps bring people in the parish together, understand the sort of element of Catholic social teaching better, really look locally at where they see a need, and yeah, lots covered. That's all I'm going to say about it here. You can find out more by sending us an email, speaking to Mariel or your local, you know, your Caritas rep or development worker. There could be days of reflection, retreats, little Bible study groups. You could offer something like that specifically for volunteers or individual parish groups like your catechist. There are already reflection days for catechists, for example, that the Agency of Evangelization offer, but you could widen that out. You could have, in many parishes, you have like a series of talks in Lent. Could one of them be about service? Could one of them be, you know, touch on that? Could you bring in some guest speakers maybe? So the parish community doesn't just hear it from their priest. What other opportunities are there in your parish already where, well, when I say you know, it might be the parish priest, it might be a pastoral assistant, it might be the youth catechetical coordinator, whatever the various roles are. So for example, when parents are waiting for their first Holy Communion children, you know, as they sit in their sessions, could you offer something there? Small bites. I remember in one of my old parishes, the parish priest showed a series of videos for the parents of confirmation age children. So at the same time, they could watch the videos and then have a discussion around that. Wonderful way of taking, using that opportunity when you have some people in a room. Not every parent might attend, but you might just have a few who are really interested. And it also helps to bring them together. It's an opportunity for them again to build relationships and network with each other. Hey, I got a few thumbs up there, okay? Or thumbs up to the to whatever messages. I won't read them now. Right, does that make sense so far? Can you think already of any kind of opportunities for formation? No, is there a lot of that going on in your parish already, or
Okay, I was just thinking we've got 10 minutes left.
Okay, right, okay. Onwards and upwards. Yes, thank you, Mario. Right, Clarissa, can I have the next slide, please? So we'll go through the next slides quite quickly. So just a few quotes that make that connection between service and the laity, the ministry of the laity, how we're all, everyone sort of carries their own part of the mission of the whole Christian people, how we're all made one body with Christ. Lovely picture there of the washing of the feet, and thanks to our catechism team for that. Next slide. So let's just go through them fairly quickly, please. And you will get them all. So then Cardinal Vincent, he said, like, one of the golden threads that runs through our Christian faith is that of loving service. The quote is a bit longer than that. But he does emphasize that volunteering, that service is both the fruit of faith and the doorway into faith. So some people volunteer because out of their faith, because they want to live out their faith, and others start by responding to a need, and in that way start to walk the pathway of faith, is how he puts it. Then there's Catholic social teaching with the principles of community, participation, solidarity. So I leave you to read that in detail afterwards. There's lots more. Next slide, please, Clarissa. Thank you. Pope Francis is saying, being a volunteer who helps others is a choice that makes us free. It opens us to other people's needs, to the demands of justice, to the defense of the poor, to the care of creation. So next slide, please. There's lots of links. Once you start looking for them, you'll see a lot. So next step then is to prepare role descriptions. Preferably for every single role, even the small ones, not just the big complicated ones. And the role descriptions don't have to be complicated, but they are really, really useful tools, because they both help you to get clarity on what exactly you want from a volunteer in each role. And also, once somebody steps forward, they can see much more easily whether that is a good match for their skills and interests, whether and what's expected of them. You spell out. You have to make sure that every role has a clear purpose, and so you include the purpose of the role, the main tasks, what you're looking for in the person to take on, who takes on that role, and the time commitment. Make it clear, and don't mislead people or undersell a task. Don't say, oh, it's just an hour a week, when it's really not. So that you get a good match. And there are role descriptions for several roles already on the diocesan website. I can tell you more about that. And also set up the systems, get your process in place, make sure you've got all the sort of forms you need for the safer recruitment process to make sure that volunteers are recruited safely. Get clarity amongst yourself. Who will follow up? Who will be the first person to respond? If someone comes up to anyone saying, oh, I'm interested, who do you send them to? Make sure you know the steps people have to follow, from being vaguely interested to actually starting in volunteering. And again, the safer recruitment process, there's a whole video on that on the Caritas YouTube channel. And yeah, also lots on the safeguarding website, on the diocesan website. Then, now that you know what you want and you've got all your ducks in a row in terms of paperwork and process, now you promote. So where and how can you invite parishioners to get involved? Well, the best, most effective, tried and tested approach is face-to-face. It's that personal invitation. It's word of mouth. It's telling others. It's inviting others, existing volunteers, inviting others along. The parish priest that sort of touch on the elbow, saying, "How would you like to join?" And one of the reasons why that is quite effective is because it can be really affirming to a person. So someone who might not think about stepping forward, if they are invited, if the parish priest or someone they know and trust and respect says, "I think you could really bring a lot to this role. Would you consider it? Just go away, consider it, have a think and let me know," and and tell them why you think that. But in order to do that, you need to know people. So getting to know your parishioners or fellow parishioners, so that you can see, you can spot a possible good match. You can use posters, flyers, newsletters, your website, our website, social media, especially if you're trying to reach young people. You can use the parishioner registration form. Is there a section where people can tick as they fill in the form what kind of help they might be able to give and if they're interested? I'm working at the moment. There will be on our website a expression of interest form that you can send people to, or people can find, where they can indicate that they're interested in volunteering and what kind of roles they might be interested in, and we can then sort of connect them with you just to see what's possible. Then the shout out from the during Mass, after the reading, if the parish priest just occasionally says, "Well, this is the need we have right now, we're looking for," let people know what your need is, because sometimes people are just not aware, and it really helps. Put something in your newsletter. Or you could have a big volunteer recruitment event, have a mini volunteering fair just for the parish, and whether that's just having the various parish groups being available at the end of a Mass, so people can talk to them easily. Make it easy for people to find out what you need and who you need. Or you could have an extra sort of in a parish hall, have stalls, teas and cakes, and a bit of a get together, and different groups having stalls giving information. Next slide, please. We're racing through that, but we're nearly done. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. And have a think about the message, so that the message is in line with the formation part. I think you skipped a slide there. Is that possible? Anyway, so think about the message so that the message chimes with the motivations of the volunteers. So everyone will have different motivations. Some people might just be lonely. They want somewhere they can go and do something with others, just get out of the house. Others might really want to use their skills. Others might just want to express their faith and say, "Whatever you need, just tell me, I'll help." So think about what the message, how the message will be perceived by the people who hear it and read it. And don't forget all these various, some people might want to get something on their CV, young people might want to get some skills, or volunteering can help to get back into work. No, not always, can't promise that, but it's possible. And you can have a volunteer, I already said that, you can have an open day, you can have an international day, you can have all sorts of things. And all of these are opportunities for encounters, for building a relationship, for being in conversation, getting to know people, as I said. So that, I already said all of that. So next slide, please, which is the last action one. So thank you for staying. And then very, very, very important, and so easily neglected, is follow up the interest fast. It's really crucial, because once you've got somebody's enthusiasm up, once this enthusiasm is sparked, don't let it then go cold by ignoring them. if it takes weeks for someone to get back to them, what they hear is they're not interested. Either they're not interested in me, they don't actually need me. They said they need someone, but can't really need someone that badly, or they don't want me. So follow up fast. And that's why it's important that you know who to point them to, who will do the following up. It's important that not everyone in the group thinks somebody else will do that. And match the person to a role that matches their interest and strength. And so this is where the role descriptions come into place. You can even have volunteer agreements, all the technical things I'm not going to go into here, but very happy to give you more information outside of this. And where possible, get a new volunteer started in some way as soon as possible. You might have to wait for DBS to come through before they can do what they really want to do, but is there a way of a possibility of having a taster session? Can they shadow someone? Can they get involved in some way, even if it's just signing people in, even if it's sort of helping with setting up, even if they then have to leave? How can they get involved in some way? Is there some initial training they can already do and get out of the way so that once they're cleared for a sort of a DBS eligible role, maybe they can then actually start and they're ready to go. And then last but definitely not least is the ongoing support. Think about how you can support the volunteers. What training do they need? Support them, check in with them regularly, ask how is it going? Be aware if someone's thinking about stepping down in time, gives you time to then immediately think about who you could ask to succeed them there. Say thank you, recognition, valuation, make them feel as valid as they are. You want them, you need them. Parishes can't survive without volunteers. Do they know that? Do they get that sense that they're really, really valued? You can have social events for them, a wine and cheese evening once a year, an outing, a reflection day, nominate them for an award, whatever it takes, but have a think about how you can, keep them motivated, keep them on board, and give them that affirmation as well. And then continue to review your volunteering needs. Try to get away from the immediate crisis management. Help, we need a catechist now, and the sessions start next week. And think ahead a little bit, plant seeds in people's minds so that you develop an ongoing program. So that's the end of the really practical things. But Clarissa, if you could just quickly race us through the last few slides, if people have time to hang about for another couple of minutes. So this is a report, which I have the link again, you can read it in detail. So research has proven that a good quality volunteer experience consists of these 8 elements: being inclusive, flexible, impactful, meaningful, connected, balanced, enjoyable, and truly voluntary. And I won't say more than that, but have a look at that slide, please, because it's really interesting. And it's done by the NCVO, which is a big big organization for volunteering. And then it's really time well spent. And if people feel that their time is well spent, they're more likely again to continue to volunteer. So have a think about how you could have all of these elements there as much as possible. Next slide, which may well be the last one. So let's remember that volunteers don't get paid not because they're worthless, but because they're priceless. They are priceless. They are absolutely invaluable for our parishes. So let's make sure that that's also the sense they get. And I think the next slide is just the links, isn't it, Clarissa? Could you just please? Yeah. So as I said, you get them. There are the links to the safe recruitment flowchart, to role descriptions, to a wonderful talk by Fulvio Ornato. He's the head of volunteering at CAFOD. He was a Catholic priest for many years in mission in Africa, and he's talked about volunteer engagement from a really sort of pastoral view and also practical view. Really worth a listen. Is on our YouTube challenge, and then that report. Yeah, there's loads more, but an hour is just so short. And thank you very much for being here. Yes, can I just have a quick comment maybe from one or two to see whether that's been useful to you. Would anybody like to comment before we do the big goodbye wave?
There've been a few comments in the chat saying thank you, and it's been really useful, and people asking for copies of the recording. So yeah, it's too much for me to repeat now. And yeah, if anybody else has got any thoughts, please just let us know. But also, please complete the feedback form, and that'll be a chance to ask for more help as well. So I've put that in. I have done. I will put it in again, so it's at the front.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I apologize. I am completely useless at being in conversation at the same time reading a chat. I can't do it. This is why I so appreciate that Mariel and Juliet and Clarissa are helping and keeping an eye on that.
Father Mark wants to say.
Yeah, I just want to say this is probably one of the convalescence. Minor convalescence has allowed me the time to actually attend one of these things, and it's really been great to hear the various contributions by the animators and also by the people attending. Getting the time to allow ourselves to train like this and to really learn from other parishes. I'm really pleased that I've been forced to do this today, and it's been really helpful. Yeah, it's been really, really good.
Well, thank you so much. That makes it worth my while. You know, it's really nice for me to hear that. That's just because that's all we want to do. This is the purpose of all of this, is to be useful to you.
We're so parochial. We really do need to work more collaboratively, and I think with volunteers and paid as well, obviously. But anyway, that's another area.
Thank you very much, Father Mark.
Eileen, you've got your hand up. Oh, somebody else has as well.
Yeah,
but Eileen.
Will there be a follow-up? Will there be a follow-up? Because it'd be lovely for us all if we can get back together, and because things are changing for us all in these roles. So it's lovely to know, what's worked for people, and just to give us some ideas as well, like you say, that the idea of collaborating, because there may be ways that we could kind of support each other.
Yeah, if there's interest, I'm sure we can set up like a networking group or something to stay in touch. If there's interest, then
we definitely want to know how you're getting on. If you do indeed follow the suggestions, fill out the form, and that will help us to link with you and make sure that you've got support. As Alka said, we're here to support you. Paul.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks so much, Alka. That was really helpful. As always, really some good nuggets in there. We're about to launch St. Bridget as a feast day next week, our patron saint volunteer campaign next week, and we've that's more or less ready to go. But we will certainly add a few things and things we've learned today. But we're more than happy, just from the last suggestion, to share in 3 months, whenever it is, how that's gone, to share our learning. That's not a problem.
Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure you have a lot of really good suggestions, and well, good luck with your volunteering drive. Let us know how you get on with that as well, and how we can support.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just want to say thank you, Elke and everyone, and I'm glad you focus about all the topics. I was quite interested even to focus, since I'm keen into education. I believe that Bible studies can be also a very good step to begin with, and inspiring people in the path of love and a social understanding. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, and God bless you all. Hope to see you. Bye.
Thank you, Maria.
You're welcome.
Right, if that's it, and I don't want to take up any more of your precious time. I know time is really precious. So thanks so much for being here, and yeah, do send us an email if you want any sort of more links, maybe details on how the recruitment process works in technical terms or anything like that. always happy to help. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.